Welcome to the Shortwave radio channel, and we're going to talk about two radios that I actually did some tests with Mediumwave and Shortwave this week. And I'll kind of give you the positive, negative of each radio, and tell you the how they compare to each other. So basically, I did videos of XHDATA D808 and compared it to my good old venerable Degen DE1103. Now this is a PLL version. That's not the new DSP version that came out later. The new DSP version is not as good as the original. That's something you got to remember. And the original is kind of difficult to find now because it's not been produced in a long time. It's got this very unique style and look, which is kind of interesting. So the basic difference, first of all, between the Degen DE1103 PLL version and the XHDATA D808, which is a DSP radio, is that the first one, the Degen, is an analog radio. So an analog radio means it doesn't use any digital signal processing technologies. It is a straight radio, with its dual conversion. It is made like a good old radio was made, and it's made pretty well, so it works really well, and the dual conversion removes images and all of that. It's very sensitive, and it doesn't have any of that weirdness that sometimes digital signal processing receivers could have. The XHDATA is a DSP radio. DSP radios rely on a chip which is in the silicon integrated category chips, which is a little computer on a chip, if you want. And that computer on a chip has a radio, and it is the radio works in processing signals like computers will process signals. That's why we call it a digital signal processor receiver. It has a way of doing its reception, and it actually will process the signals digitally before converting it to analog for you to listen to this in the speaker of the radio, for example. It adds some possibilities that an analog radio cannot have, and it also has its quirks and quarks that an analog radio does better. I would say the biggest one that you will notice is the chuffing or the muting when you're tuning. And XHDATA mutes when you actually change frequency to frequency. It's not a big mute. Some are worse than others on the mute. That one is not too bad, but it does mute. And for some people, it's an annoying thing. So, of course, that's something that doesn't happen on the Degen DE1103. Because it's analog, so it doesn't mute at all when you're tuning around the different frequency ranges. Both are very precise in their frequencies. Even though the other one's a DSP, it still uses a PLL. We got to understand that a DSP receiver does not remove the PLL, the phase lock loop. It's still a design within a DSP receiver. It's what makes the frequency display accurate and precise. Where I would give points to the Degen DE1103 is in its audio. The audio is more beautiful on the Degen DE1103. It is richer in frequency range on the speaker. The other thing of the Degen DE1103 is that it is simpler to use also. So for somebody that's not very techy, or you're not used to using complex receivers and stuff, the Degen DE1103 is definitely simpler to use on shortwave and all of that. Does it have quirks and quarks? Yes, it does. First of all, the keypad is in a weird arrangement of a horizontal row, so for some people that could be a problem. I would say probably what is the most problematic thing of the Degen DE1103 compared to an XHDATA is how it's more difficult to tune single sideband signals. It's not that it's super difficult, but it uses the good old way of tuning the frequency and then playing around with a little BFO thumb wheel on the right side of the radio, so you actually have to find the right pitch when you're tuning. So it makes the tuning of single sideband signals a little more difficult than the XHDATA that has the upper lower sideband separate settings. So when a radio has upper and lower sideband available as two different modes, it automatically means that it's going to be a little easier to tune. Also, the BFO for tuning, being in a digital radio, is actually also much easier to understand where you are at on the Degen. That little wheel that you tune of BFO, you've got to remember to kind of leave it kind of in the middle, but there's no notch to kind of feel it. So sometimes it can make an error, and you're going to say, well, I'm listening to a signal on 6502 single sideband, and in reality it's 6501. It's just that you've put the BFO to the max, and it sometimes makes a little error in the reading of the frequency. It's not that it's a big problem. You still hear the signal. It's just that it's not giving you all the accuracy that you should have. While here, you'll know that it's 6501 because that little wheel, that BFO on the display, is going to give you, there's a center where it tells you it's 0. And then it gives you a plus or a minus range, making the single sideband signal tuning easier and more precise. One of the advantages of the XHDATA D808 also is the fact that there's several bandwidths. It is amazing the number of bandwidths you've got for all modes, AM and shortwave and so on, so that you can actually use the bandwidths to eliminate interference that would be adjacent to the frequency you're listening to. The Degen does have bandwidths, but it's two bandwidths. It's simply wide or narrow. So it's not as flexible. It still works well as a system for listening, but you just don't have the same flexibility. If we put it down to earth, what is better? Both are very good. I honestly will not tell you that one is better than the other. I will tell you they are two different radios that do the same job really well, but each have a different way of doing it. And like I say, the muting, a DSP radio like the XHDATA sometimes have this awkward way of having the signals fade in and out because everything is digitally processed. It's something you might not like. And when you don't like that type of radio, then the Degen definitely does the job and will receive the same signals. There is no signal that I've heard on the XHDATA that I could not hear on the Degen DE1103. And the other way around, same thing. Where the XHDATA beats the 1103, it's in medium wave. And the reason is Degen has a pretty a ferrite, a stock ferrite that is the same used in multiple radios, same size of multiple radios. So medium wave is good, but the XHDATA is a little better because it has, and it's known to have, a longer ferrite antenna for medium wave. It adds to its reception of medium wave and does make, and it's hard to say on the signals I've chosen on the videos that I posted, but it's definitely better on some occasions, and it was easy to hear when I was playing around and tuning around AM band, that the XHDATA in many cases did beat the DE1103 in sensitivity and getting and reaching that signal that was weaker on the AM radio band. As for the rest, both radios are great. Both radios receive pretty much the same thing. It's all a question of having a more modern, more complex radio, the D808, versus having a, more down-to-earth analog, good old analog shortwave, like the Degen DE1103. And both are great. Sound quality is a little better on the 1103, although it's not bad at all on the XHDATA. And Degen 1103 uses AA batteries. The XHDATA uses that 18650 lithium-ion battery. That's also something that some people might not like. XHDATA is lighter. Degen is a little more heavy, and it is a little bigger than the XHDATA also, if you like a bigger radio. And of course, it has that interesting display here where there's a LCD. It fakes an analog needle on the display, which is kind of nice. At first, when I got the radio, I thought, well, they should have used that to have more information displayed instead. But, it also has this charm. It's kind of nice to have that charm of having what looks like an analog radio with a needle, when in reality, it's actually a LCD bar that goes up and down on that display. That, I gotta say, it's very unique to the Degen DE1103, and it's kind of cool. So whatever you choose, you'll have a great radio. If you want something more simple, something that doesn't mute, and that still does the job, Degen DE1103, the original one, is a really good radio. As for quality, a lot of people saying, well, what about quality control? Well, I got that Degen for now, at least, we're in 2020. I probably have this for at least 6, 7, 8 years maybe. So, it's done the test. I consider that if a radio works well after 5 years, it's a good radio, and it's done the test. And like every radio, you got to take care of it for sure, and you got to use it. As for the XHDATA, well, it's been more than a year. It's been at least a year and a half, if not 2 years, since I've got the XHDATA now. And it works perfectly, and I've got no issues at all. Sometimes we read about people having problems with like the encoder, or having a problem with a radio that broke down after a while. One of the things you got to remember is that of all receivers you will buy, whatever brand, there's always one that might have a problem. I was reading the other day a comment. Somebody actually had a C-Crane Skywave SSB, and it stopped working after only 6 months. So it gives you an idea that every manufacturer, every company that does a radio, they have that radio from time to time that could have a glitch or a problem. From what I see is that there's no more problem on a Degen D1103 or an XHDATA D808 or a C-Crane Skywave SSB. They seem to be pretty good quality built radios in general. And as for the famous, because a lot of people say, well, the C-Crane's got a 1-year warranty. They all have 1-year warranty, by the way. The Degen DE1103 was even written in the info, and the XHDATA, when you go to the website, they tell you there's a 1-year warranty on it. And the problem is not the warranty, and that's the thing. And the problem is using that warranty, which is a very different thing. When you buy it on Amazon, it's easy to use the warranty. It's more, where you're going to purchase it, that the warranty is going to be something interesting to use. So if you buy it on Amazon, Amazon has a good, we know that if it breaks on warranty, Amazon has a good record, and they're going to help you with that. If you buy it on eBay from a seller in China, it gets more complicated, because the eBay seller will probably tell you, yeah, I'll replace it, but you're going to have to send it back at your cost, and there's so much that could happen with that it makes it more complicated. So when somebody says, buy a C-Crane, it's got a 1-year warranty. Yeah, if you're in the United States and you got access to a C-Crane on Amazon easily, yeah, okay. But if you live in Europe and you want to buy a C-Crane, it's a very different story. That warranty is as useless as the warranties of any other radio, because once you start buying from another country, the rules change completely, and those warranties are completely useless most of the time. So we got to be careful with all of that. But D808 versus 1103, both are amazing. 1103 is simpler to use for somebody that might not be very tech savvy. XHDATA is an amazing radio with a lot of capabilities. And last but not least, the XHDATA has the airband. The Degen DE1103 does not. That could maybe make a difference also. So I'm not going into the very big technical details here of each radio. More of a kind of comparing both radios after testing them together this week. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe, give us thumbs up. Thanks for watching.